Hi, my name's Siope. I'm the director of Smarter Parenting. Today I wanted to talk to you about when you should talk to your child about sex. That's a touchy subject for a lot of parents. In fact, parents seem very uncomfortable about the topic of sex, and especially in discussing sex with their children. One of the most important things to understand, and this is counsel that I received when I was being trained as a therapist, is that children arrive at the topic of sexuality at different stages of their life. The best advice I can give to any parent is that you talk about sex when your children have questions about sex. And it may vary. So if your child comes to you and has a question about where babies come from at 3 years old, it's best to address them based on their experience and their knowledge and being truthful and answer the question that they asked. And they may come back later and ask a more in-depth question, and then you discuss it there. So, for example, with my daughter, she approached us, and she was asking us questions about where babies come from. Okay, this was before she even went into kindergarten, elementary school. Just where do babies come from? And so we were like, okay, well, babies come from mothers' tummies. And then her question was, well, how does the baby get inside mommy's tummy? And we're like, well, mom and dad decided they wanted to have a baby, or they had a baby, and the baby comes from from me and from your mom. Okay, and that's how you were made. And so she's like, okay. And she was satisfied with that answer. So we answered it according to her level of where she was. She came back later when she was in first grade because other kids were talking about it. And she had a more in-depth question. So she's like, okay, so how is the baby made? Okay. Luckily, my wife is a physician, so she was able to discuss it in that way. And we were both there during the discussion, but we didn't go in depth of sexuality and sex. But we did talk about, okay, there's an egg, and dad has a seed, and they're implanted. And luckily, we had some fish and some other animals, and so we were able to make some comparisons with, okay, so they have puppies, there's a dad puppy and a mom puppy, and they get together, and the dad has a seed, and the seed gets inside the mom's egg, and she was satisfied with that answer. Okay, fast forward, she's a little bit older. Now she has more questions, okay? And so we answer it according to the level of the question that she has, but we don't negate it, we don't cover it up, we don't hide it. We just answer the question based on her understanding, and we continue. Okay, so she had to take a human sexuality, or I guess human development, that's what they call it, in school, and so she was prepared for that class. It wasn't a shocker for her. We're able to move forward and help her understand more in depth as it goes. So even before she took the human sexuality class, then we had the other discussion. Now, it's been popular forever that, the dad will pull his son aside, or the mom will take the daughter aside and have the one conversation about sex, the birds and the bees, and that was it. Okay? That actually is an ineffective way to do it, because that is associated with shame, it's associated with secrecy, it's associated with, this is a taboo topic, and it's something that we cannot communicate about openly as parents and as children. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to communicate about sex through the different stages of their life, depending on the questions that they may have. You don't want to give them more information than they want, but you want to satisfy the questions as they come. Sex and talking about sex with your child should be a conversation over the lifetime of your child. Okay? It's a developmental conversation that you have beginning whenever they have questions all the way through their young adulthood life. And by you providing the answers, you're actually educating them that they can talk about these things with you. You can strengthen your relationship with them, but it also gives you the perspective to explain it to them in a way that their peers cannot explain it to them. You can share correct information that their peers may not be able to explain appropriately. So what if you're uncomfortable answering the questions that your child is presenting to you? I want you to assess within yourself why you're uncomfortable talking about it. As a parent, sexuality happens because you created a child. But why are you uncomfortable talking about this topic with your child? And are you afraid that perhaps you may be giving more information than you should? That's something that you'll have to determine on your own. But understanding what is your discomfort level with that and with communicating with your child. And you may want to assess whether or not you're uncomfortable talking about other topics with your child. Because if you're uncomfortable talking about it with your child will be uncomfortable listening to it from you. So find out why you feel that way and what you're comfortable sharing, and then share that. But the best rule of thumb is to be open. Really be open with your child and communicate honestly with them based on where they're at. Okay? So again, you're looking at a conversation over time. Answer the questions that come up when they come up. Be honest about them. Don't give them more information than they need or that they're satisfied with. Just move it along the way. And understand that while you're going along this course, they're receiving a completely different track of education about sex, usually from peers, from friends, from media. They're receiving another education about it, and it can be completely wrong. So it's good for you to be a part of that conversation, because regardless of if you talk to them about it or not, they're still receiving information about sex, not from you. So you want to be able to balance that out as a parent. Now, you may think that your child will never come to you to talk about this topic. What is important for you to do then is to ask questions about what they're learning in school and what they're receiving from friends, because the conversation about sex is happening. If they're being exposed to media, if they are with friends at school, conversations happen on the side, and unfortunately it's incorrect information. So ask age-appropriate questions as you continue. For example, as your child develops, ask them, okay, so you like boys and girls? Okay, that's great. So boys and girls get together, have you ever talked about sex? Have you ever talked about intercourse? Have you talked about safety, STDs? Now, of course you're not going to talk about that when your child's 9, okay? Or maybe you would. I don't know if it's appropriate for the time. But being open to the conversation and addressing the needs where they are along that whole line of their development, that's the important thing to be able to do. Keeping the conversation open and keeping the conversation going from when they're young all the way until they mature and become older. So they will be uncomfortable at times. And I'm just saying that from experience. Your child may be uncomfortable about talking, but be comfortable. And when you address it and you just address it head on, they become comfortable with it too. So be confident in what you're doing, what you're presenting, what you're talking about.